movements by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. First of all is this famous indictments of the leaders of Russia, including Vladimir Putin and his secretary for Children's Affairs, Maria Lvova-Belova, who are right now, both of them are indicted war criminals. But, you know, the chances of getting these into the ICC tribunal in The Hague are not exactly very high right now. So there are thoughts in Europe, in European capitals, here in London, and as well in the United States, of how to make, you know, the whole process of justice quicker and more efficient, to see what could be done and what practically could be achieved. One of the ways is that the hybrid system of Ukrainian prosecutions involving at the same time international prosecutors, international investigators who will come to Ukraine and be forming teams together with their Ukrainian colleagues and investigate. So it's not going to be an ICC investigation or an investigation done exclusively just by Ukrainians or by another country. It could be sort of hybrid system, the system where the strength of the investigators from different European countries could be combined with the Ukrainians. And this could be done under the auspices of the Council of Europe, a big political umbrella organization. The idea is to get the best practices of how to achieve justice against the perpetrators of the war crimes, which has been done in places like Bosnia and Herzegovina or Central African Republic. So there are examples of how these systems could be made quicker and deliver, even if those verdicts will be in absentia, even if those Russian troop commanders are still hiding somewhere in Russia, there will be verdicts against them. And we know that, you know, the hands of law are maybe sometimes slow, but they do catch. Thank you very much. Thanks for your support. But they will reach. So you know, the sooner things are done in helping the Ukrainians first to have the full catalog of crimes, and we are talking about gigantic amount of crimes, at least 156,000 of them. So that's, you know, for years Ukrainian prosecutors will have a lot of work, but Europeans can help and must help. First, of course, is financing, you know, to make sure that they have the Ukrainians have all the means they need, you know, all the database systems, everything they need to have a full catalog of those crimes, and at the same time, you know, to get all the European support they can. The American as well. Of course, there are, in this coalition of the willing is important, so there could be some know-how and prosecutors with a good knowledge of how this was done, even in ex-Yugoslavia. So we are talking people who are right now, I don't know, the experts in Bosnia-Herzegovina, the experts who investigated the war crimes in Croatia or in Slovenia committed by Serbs, or in Albania, in Kosovo. So this kind of experts should be really involved, and the same those ones who were prosecuting the war criminals in committing all the atrocities in the Central African Republic, or even check how justice was done in case of other big genocides like in Rwanda. So this could be achieved, but for that the international efforts must be combined. And this country, UK, has a formidable legal system, has a lot of top prosecutors and judges who are willing to play their part. Let's not forget that after the Second World War, after the Nazis were defeated, the whole Nuremberg process which was happening, which sentenced lots of top Nazi officials, they were the judges, the prosecutors, the lawyers, even the defense lawyers, were the British lawyers, or quite a lot of them Brits. So there's a lot of things which we Europeans and we Brits can do to help Ukrainians to achieve that justice. And we should all demand tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Thank you very much, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!
Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state.
Все, подтянулись, братишки.
Вітаємо. Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state. More sanction on Russia. More sanction on Russia. More sanction on Russia. Stop buying Russian gas. Stop buying Russian oil. Stop buying Russian gas. Stop buying Russian oil. Stop buying Russian gas. Stop buying Russian oil. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Slava Ukraini! Slava Nacii! Ukraina! Ukraina! Ladies and gentlemen, on February the 24th, 2022, the world changed.
А ви з Криму?
Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Казахстан?
Not just the war continues,
Hi, you're from?
but a war
But you
against
like
the very
from
principles that
Hong Kong?
underpin international order.
Singapore and China.
At the moment, I'm reading a book by the esteemed author
You think I look cousin?
Applebaum.
Oh yeah, something like.
You think so? You think so?
Very much
Kazakhstan, yeah?
understands
Ні?
Мабуть, ні. Можливо, тому що я знаю.
А, Singapore is cleanest country of the world.
Yeah.
You cannot
You can't have chewing gum. No chewing gum.
is Sikorsky,
cleanest.
Foreign Minister of Poland, but she's also spent
But you know which flag you have?
she's written books specifically
This is
about
Crimea.
Ukraine.
Crimea.
Two books that I can
Crimea,
recommend
right?
to you.
Yeah, I think you're from Crimea, but
Both, yes.
About the suffering, because many people don't know about the millions of Ukrainians that died during
I have live stream. Can you say something in your language, in Chinese or Mandarin, for Russian people who
Oh,
look?
I'm not fluent.
No? No?
I don't speak. Sorry.
You speak only English?
Yeah.
You born here?
Yeah.
To every one of you, it's not an easy read, but like many things, we need to educate ourselves to understand who we're dealing with. In the same way in which you would go to Auschwitz or Vietnam to learn about the atrocities that the Nazis inflicted, in the same way we have to learn about what Russia has done, what Russia is capable of.
Which country you are?
In the same
Your country,
way,
your country.
Kurdistan.
Kurdistan?
Yes, please.
Okay, super.
to Irpin, to Bucha, places where there are mass graves, places where they marched young men off.
Can you say something in my live stream? Something.
In Kurdistan?
Yeah, in your
Kurdish?
language. Yeah.
Okay.
In many cases, these men
هر بشی اوکراینیا بشی سربخویا اوکراینیا دوی همو خلق سپورتا اوکراینیا بکر Çünkü Ukrayna jive ku Kurdistan. Leben herişa da.
Ukrayna, bijit Ukrayna.
You can say something for your Muslim brothers who watching this.
Say something. Ya perviya ser hemi xalqi support Ukrayna bike çünkü ev jî miroven ev jî her vekî Filistin vekî Kurda li bin hêrişa dana. Divêt hemû kes support Ukrayna bike. Bijît Ukrayna.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Собираем народ.
This is about the rules that have governed peace and freedom since 1945. We need to stand up for these rules. We need to stand up for these freedoms. And we need to stand together as the whole world. World support Ukraine!
World support Ukraine!
World support Ukraine!
World support Ukraine!
World support Ukraine! The criminal, the war criminal, is the architect of this situation. In doing so, in waging a full-scale invasion of Ukraine,
Це на 65%
more than just
переработок.
he wanted to send the message that the old rules of sovereignty, of human rights, of international law no longer apply. In his view, the treaties the civilians of their
Нет,
time,
по-моему, нет.
abduction and cultural erasure are tools of power. This is how we operate.
Дудаев уже не того, по-моему, да?
Because
Дудаева нет?
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state!
Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
And we've seen what this Russian terror looks like. We've seen what Ruski Mir looks like.
Почему курдам не дали страны после Второй мировой войны?
Russian forces have built torture
Израилю дали, а курдам нет.
They've kidnapped children and they've rewritten their identities. They've targeted journalists, artists and teachers. And this all but by design.
Тебя прям видно скрепы, так и лезут из чата ствола.
They targeted these people because these people
В голове другого ничего нет у людей.
they represent culture and they represent memory. Russia wants to destroy truth,
Почему
culture
ты не в
and
Украине?
memory. And why?
Бан за терроризм,
Because
видишь?
these three
Мы с
elements
тобой террористы.
Чату надо бан за терроризм на самом деле. 65% бан за терроризм.
stand by and watch how this unfolds. Because believe me, Russia is not going to stop. Russia, no matter what it says, is not interested in peace. It's not satisfied with 4 more oblasts in
Гризли, этим нужно ботинки вытирать.
Russia wants everything. So if we want to stop this nightmare, we need to stop Russia. Stop Russia, stop the war!
Stop the war!
Stop Russia, 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 stop the war!
And for all these crimes that Russia is committing, for these abductions, for these killings of civilians,
Controversial channel,
crimes against Ukrainian prisoners of war. There has to be justice.
Go Russia, go war.
There has to be justice because without justice, there has to be peace. Tribunals for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunals for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunals 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 for Russian war criminals.
This is a time when we have to stand strong, stand tall, and defend international law. And why? Because Putin has openly mocked international law, even declaring that he's prepared to annex more territories that he doesn't control. Putin's goal is clear.
Лудыше. А учат других русский язык учить, да? И не запрещать. Пожалуйста, будет ссылка.
And as another terrorist, another war criminal, Lavrov, the so-called foreign minister, put it, he said,
Сегодня больше по-английски начали писать.
This is not just about Ukraine. This is about the world.
Long life, Владимир Путин.
Потому что он иногда
talks about what hypocrisy is supported, if not directly owned, by China, Iran and North Korea. Their leaders watch Ukraine closely. They study our resolve. They weigh our ambitions against our unity.
Вітаю, хлопче.
If we falter, the consequences will echo far beyond Ukraine's borders. If we allow Putin to redraw facts by force, we signal to every dictator that might makes right, that human rights are optional, and that freedom is negotiable. We cannot allow that. To stand with Ukraine is not charity, it is
a defense of the world we want to live in. A world where nations are sovereign, people are free, and international law is real. Where man does not make right, and man will have to stand by Ukraine if those are the values we believe in. Stand with Ukraine!
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 Arm Ukraine now!
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 One of the things that I want to talk about, and maybe you've seen it across social media, it is the performance, the scheduled performance of the opera singer, the soprano Anna Netrebko. She is scheduled to perform at the Royal Opera Hall, but she is a Putin apologist. She has endorsed terrorists in Ukraine, so-called separatist leaders in Donetsk and Luhansk, and also in Crimea.
This is Italia.
And she's also donated money to an opera house
Amigos.
in occupied Donetsk. These are the kind of people that we don't need. And let me tell you why. Because day on day in Ukraine, artists, singers, people that are involved in culture are dying. Most recently, a lady called Mahalika Polovinko. So this is a 31-year-old Ukrainian artist who volunteered to evacuate wounded soldiers from the front line.
Do you want to answer to this?
She was so concerned about
How will you save the country? Only you can save it.
She died on the
I can tell you how. A lot of Ukrainians are fighting. A lot of Ukrainians are helping from abroad by raising awareness, raising funds, helping to get weapons, helping to get non-military aid. It's all one bit of the same goal.
On the central cemetery in her hometown of Brivery, where she was born in 1994. This, of course, is the hometown of the Ukrainian President Zelensky, who was also born in Brivery. Let's not forget, recently also in Brivery, a Russian missile struck near a playground on the 4th of April, and it
Наталья, когда ты хлебал прикроешь, тогда и заткнемся.
among those 20 people, 9 of which were children. Why does it matter? On the 15th of April, Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration was blocking a G7 statement condemning Russia's Palm Sunday strike on Sumy.
Теж цікавий, який такий орешник.
Near the Russian border,
Скільки у вас?
where
10?
Russians killed approximately 35 people and damaged a regional art museum, the Sumy Regional Museum of Local History, and other cultural institutions. We've got to stand up and be counted. We can't just allow this to go on, because otherwise, if we allow this to go on and we become so blasé about things, this will become the new norm, and this is dangerous. We can't allow this to become the new norm.
Уже был один орешник и ничего не решил.
Euromaidan class, which chronicles events in Ukraine
Нам орешники не
for an
потрібні.
international
How
audience.
many homeless
Recorded
you
doubling
got?
his death as the latest casualty of Russia's
Скільки тут
cultural massacre of
чоловіків
Ukraine.
десь вдома.
Since February 2022,
Everyone already,
Russia has
everyone is already sick of
targeted
this Ukraine.
Ukrainian cultural
Ви ж
voices
стараються.
through
Русскими
assassination,
іменами
I can
стараються.
see some progress. I definitely can see some
No.
progress. They're learning languages.
more than 100 cultural figures dead in its wake. Their stories offer a window into a broader catastrophe, how Russia's war is extinguishing cultural and creative potential, turning once promising talents into voids before their greatest works can be created. And I'll leave you with this.
Controversial channel is kind of 404 channel.
By Nikita Kadan, one of Ukraine's most prominent contemporary artists and curators. She wrote in an Instagram post featuring photographs of a number of
Героям слава.
Pavlov's works at an exhibition in Lviv, along with a poem by Sylvia Plath.
Слушай, ни одной, смотри, даже ни одной мысли у людей не проскакивает. То есть просто вот не могут одного слова сказать.
The universal history of dignity and rights.
Вот, одно слово.
Remember, these cultural people are so important in telling the story of Ukraine, and they are heroes of Ukraine too. These heroes will not die.
Where is
Slava Ukraini! Slava Nazi!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Наш героям ключі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Що за мужик? Бачив?
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям
Валю
тричі!
просто.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Just to let everybody know that on
Сектанти.
Friday I'm off to America, which where I've been a few times. Every other time I've always gone without a fall. I must admit, I'm going now and I'm looking over my shoulder. And not only am I associated with Ukrainians here, but I also have and I'm proud to have some Palestinian friends and I've been greeted. So am I absolutely confident that I wouldn't cross the border? I am
Москва це Україна.
No. Just to let everyone know, I'm going in North Carolina. I have many Ukrainian colleagues there. There's a thriving association called Ukrainians in the Carolinas. And they organise many events and there's a super barbecue thing between 7th and April, which would be a big
Щось такі агресивні.
so I fully intend to touch base with them and we'll certainly report back and I'll certainly report back on
Да,
anything
утро.
I see over in America.
В Лондоне утро. 6 утра.
Which practice something firsthand rather than just hear it through the news.
Писать не вміє. Географію не знаю. Часовые пояса не знаю. Умею сказать больше ничего не могу.
Гей-парад скоро, еще рано, еще холодно.
Казахстан тут что-то
Has actually been blamed for starting the war in Ukraine, blamed before.
Оля Крест.
I think that the person who says that Vladimir Zelensky is being blamed has no real idea
Я в штаб.
of a war other than by choice. There's no concept
Ой.
this war that started by an aggression. And Ukraine had no choice in that because they were invaded by an aggressor and we could never forget that. I think those things are being said
Наши
because of the
заметили
fact
просто.
that the proposed
Сам пойти не
ceasefire,
может.
Да.
for all intents and purposes, is not going to work. And the attention has to be diverted from that. The siege will fail. Keep looking at
Мясо.
Do we think that Putin is making America look foolish? Well, I'll leave you to judge that. I think there's a very good chance he is. And the fact is,
Якийсь
again,
патріот.
quoted by a
Swear.
defense expert, not me. Russians know they have Washington on the hook for a series of lucrative deals around the control of oil and
Судя
rare
по всему чату
minerals
разбежались.
underground. In fact, Moscow
Яр,
believes
пусит, пусит.
Це.
perhaps in the summer or autumn, by which time they think they can make further gains in Ukraine. So that is what the defense experts think of
Задело.
Russian tactics.
Есть прилет.
And there's considerable
Григорий Спарас.
circumstances have been created where Vladimir Zelensky and the Europeans can be blamed for the continuation of the
Блять,
war.
все плохо, да, ты посмотри.
Again, that takes the emphasis off the deal proposed, which, as I said, for all intents and purposes, is just not going to work. I think you have a theory, I think there is a theory that
Старался, нарисовал, видишь?
America may well move on for the time being from the Ukraine war and train to the military or something like that, because we know very well that they're not really going anywhere. So, I think this is very important.
Посмотришь на средний уровень больницы, прям плакать хочется.
The other thing that I picked up on is that there is the thought that
А сейчас с ними говорить. Два слова связать не могут.
We have to believe this. And this will happen for years because the Ukrainians will not roll over and Russia will not achieve those aims. So, anyway, thank you very much for listening here to Environment. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Slava Nazi!
Смерть ворогам!
Ukraina!
Понад усе!
Ukraina!
Понад усе!
Ukraina!
Понад усе!
Ukraina trичі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thanks God.
Это ТВ.
Героям слава!
We're gathering here every single week, and we've been gathering here on and off since 2014. Then it stopped for a while, then it restarted again. We had 30 days and 30 nights of war rallies here. The volunteers who you see here over there, Michael over there, they were here for 30 days and 30 nights, and it was unsustainable. They stopped when Crimea was annexed, and everyone, including me, we thought that surely this is over. They got Crimea, they have this parade, they have a big gala. They said the jewel is returned back to the Empire of Russia, but it never stopped. Then they wanted 2 regions, now they want 4 regions. They're nothing but appeasement of an aggressor. They are standing right now on about 17.5% of Ukraine, and then they want 24, almost 25%. More than they took of Georgia in 2008. More they took of Moldova in 92. Because if you let them, they will get away with absolutely anything. The atrocities. Some countries, I'm not going to name them, they said, we can't condemn the attacks on civilians that happened recently in Ukraine because we need a room for negotiation. Room for appeasement is not a room for negotiations because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
And while some, you know who they are, they want our rare earth minerals, they want some of our resources. Others already took salt mines. Russia took one of the biggest European salt mines on occupied regions. They are selling they are cutting down the trees. They are selling it. Whoever will buy, they will sell it to. Whatever they can steal, they will steal. But what we are focused here is on people, not rare earth minerals, but rare Ukrainian people. Hundreds of our, I think it was 150 plus of our poets and writers were killed in last 36 months alone. Russians have kidnapped 19,500 of our children, and Putin went on television in 2022 and he said, yes, they are orphans, especially of those children that were killed recently in 2 different cities. And if Russians are not stopped, they will do more tomorrow, because they are nothing but scumbag terrorist invaders. They are generational war criminals, and more than a dozen of nations from Africa to Middle East and from Middle East to Europe can testify to that today. And we're gonna have that minute of silence.
Саша Михайленко, у тебя отец украинец или дед украинец?
Слава Україні!
Героям слава! Понад усе!
Україна! Україна! І наші захисникам українців.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
And I don't know about you, I do not want to waste even my breath on those who haven't even contributed any help to us. I would love to concentrate my gratitude on Americans, like two of my friends that I met through other volunteers. One is training the soldiers in a close indoor combat. Another is a sharpshooting champion in America in his state. So he took up, he bought his own gear and he's fighting in a special division on the front line. And then you see the Chinese, we were starting to catch Chinese. We were fighting North Korean in Kursk region from 6th of August last year, and for 7 months we were in Kursk region. Now we are in Belgorod region. We will not leave any territory of Russia, Russian border, because it is essential that they feel what we feel and that they spread their resources. They want to demilitarize Ukraine. They militarized Ukraine more with their attacks and more with them raging this war than we were before. Ukrainian army in 2025 is the most experienced and largest army of Europe. More than 1 million of soldiers.
Блять, два слова. Грамотно
And
можешь
no one
написать?
knows how to use Western
Просто чисто по-человечески
military
интересно.
equipment more than
Do you speak
Ukrainians.
Russia?
The second biggest European army will be Polish army with about 300,000 plus. This is why, for us, peace is very simple. Stop killing us, return all the kidnapped children, return all prisoners of war, leave our land and leave us alone. It's very simple. Peace is very simple. If you hear your neighbors shouting and arguing and there's breaking of glasses and stuff, you know something is going on. There is no such thing as saying, we will do anything that you want, can you please stop beating up your wife? No. If you're a criminal, you're supposed to be in jail. And on 17th of March 2023, there was a warrant issued for Putin's arrest. He's a wanted man. So if someone, if a politician or a politician wannabe puts his hand on heart and is happy to meet Putin last week, I have nothing but pity for that person. Meeting the largest child kidnapper and the biggest war criminal right now,
Когда
we are
приедешь, тогда и
fighting
будет.
nothing but a club, a dying club and a shrinking club of dictators. Syrian regime gone. Why they did not send any backup troops? If Russians need North Koreans to fight in Kursk region, this is why they could not help Syrian regime to continue, and this is why Syrian regime fell, because of Ukrainian resilience. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And I met a really cool Polish guy today while I was leaving work. And I said, your last name is definitely Polish. He said, yes. My grandfather was born in Lviv. And I said, wait. He told me the year and I said, wait. What happened with your family in 1944? He said, no, I know. You're talking about the big deportation of the Polish people from Lviv, which was called Ukrainization. I said, yes. He said, no. The Soviets caught my granddad because he was fighting Soviets. So this is why he was captured. And then when he escaped, they went to England, they escaped to England. And this is how he was born here. So I keep meeting British people who suffered from the same thing that we are suffering right now. Mass deportation, mass murder of civilians. Between 250, that's the minimum, up to 350,000 civilian houses and other buildings, of which are schools, hospitals, churches, are partially or fully destroyed by Russian scumbag terrorists. This is why we gather here. Under one of my comments on social media, I got 2 days ago, I got a message. You are dodging Ukrainian military draft. You are hiding in England or wherever you are hiding from mobilization in Ukraine. Well, I wrote to him back. He said, you're a draft, military, Ukrainian draft dodger. I said, I don't know if you're talking about the draft beer, draft documents that I don't want to read, because as a Czech-born, Latvian-grown Brit, I would be considered as a mercenary if I go to Ukraine and I join the army. Same as those Chinese. Many people take the risk, like few of my American friends and few of my other national friends from other countries. But I do what I can from here. It's not a cowardly thing. Us, with support Ukraine and London, we have gathered more than 1.15 million pounds of direct aid. And this weekend, I'm not trying to say that like we are doing something and you are not doing that. We are just saying that when some of my friends, the British friends, they say, have a nice Easter weekend. I said, well, we use Easter weekend as an opportunity to raise more money for our soldiers. So this weekend, if there will be shorts in the morning, we will come to the church whenever we are needed. Sometimes
Рашу, ты определись, пожалуйста, уже, или брать, или зетничать. Одновременно не получится.
Ты брата убиваешь своего или нет? Подумай. Брать из процентов. А почему миллион трупов? Кто их убил? Ну и твой президент никого не убивает. И Лавров никого не убивает. И Захарова, и Песков никого не убивает. Только миллион трупов как-то за 2 года.
Что? Вову за что уважать? Развалил страну.
Выгнал людей из своей страны.
Бомбил вторую. Убивает там. Детей ворует. Его за что уважать?
Твой Вова не вечный. Уже один Вова лежит 100 лет. Как мумия. И этот не вечный. Первый Вова развалил империю, второй Вова развалит федерацию. А ты молись на него.
Смотри, как он
все просто.
tricking North
Хотя чего,
Koreans,
уважать за то, что ты тут честно пиздишь. Уважение зарабатывают вообще.
Capturing all these nations. And this is why we had last Sunday we had a man come over and
смотри,
he said,
смотри,
you were
это
talking
не
about
Путин войну устроил, да?
in Alabuga.
А кто тогда?
Yes.
Ратио, наверное,
They are also
вышел
from
и такой,
Sierra
типа, да,
Leone.
давайте.
And Sierra Leonean ambassador.
Клятая НАТО, наверное, это все заставило
He
сделать.
came over and he met 4 Sierra Leonean students who are in Alabuga assembling suicide drones that they are buying from Iran. This is why, if you have Africans being used, Chinese being
Напиши
used,
про англосаксов, которые это все
North Koreans
устроили.
being used, Belarusians being used, war crimes committed right now, Niger, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Syria until last year. If you Google the breadbasket of Europe, you will get Ukraine. If you Google the war crimes in Africa, you get Russia. This is why.
Можно перестать воевать в любой день. Просто уйдите с чужой территории, выведите свои войска, и все закончится.
Верните детей.
North Korea, Russia, Iran are trying to destroy as much as possible of Ukraine using low precision rockets. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
And please, I urge you and I beg you, please do not waste your breath or your energy or on any peace killers or any tariff people, because we are fighting a real war. This is not something that people see on television. For us, this is real. For us, this is real. When you talk to your best friend and she says to you, I'm very sorry, I will call you back, I need to go to a bomb shelter. Every single Ukrainian knows where is the closest bomb shelter.
Переписать нельзя. Бомбить людей перестать можно прямо сейчас.
Anywhere they go, they know. Even the press conference with the 2 Chinese mercenaries, before the interview started, it lasted almost 2 hours. The soldier said,
Миллион платят.
Александр, попробуй почистить уши.
and he continued to give them instructions. Have you ever watched an interview in your life when before the interview starts, they tell you where to hide if North Korean rockets will start hitting civilians? Have you ever heard an interview when a person who is helping with the interview says where you need to hide when Iranian Shahid drones will try to hit you? This is why we gather here, because for us this is existential war. If we stop fighting, we stop volunteering, we cease to exist. They will absorb us again. Thank you for your support. They will absorb us again like they did, and they will rule, and they will basically enslave us like they did with my parents, like they did with my grandparents.
Thank you.
Both sides of my family suffered from communist Russians. On my dad's side, my great-granddad got shot by a firing squad because that year, that month, that day, Orthodox religion, Christianity, was inconvenient for them. So they shot him with a firing squad. With my mom's family, they robbed them clean. What do they do 100 years later in 2025? Rob, loot, steal, destroy, rape, repeat. Every single day for 1,148 days. No day off. You will have a bank holiday this weekend. You don't need to go to work this Friday. You don't need to go to work this Sunday, unless you work in security or emergency. But most of us will have a long weekend. Well, Russians don't have a day off. Don't have a day off. There was one day this year we had no drones flying towards us. But they still killed us on land.
Третий, он тебе вещает, ты же здесь до сих пор.
From landmines that we stepped on, we still died from artillery shells. And by the way, the Ukrainians
забыл еще задонатить.
have the most powerful sanctions of all.
Лайк поставь.
Because of our strikes on their rocket storages, the artillery that they shoot went down from 40,000 to around 25,000 shells every single day. It's still a
Да,
lot.
через полчаса будет за газу митинг, он сразу туда идет.
Because some days it was around 20. This is why my cousin fights on the front line. This is why my friend's family fight on the front line. We have a mother and daughter. They haven't joined us for a while now, but both. They're all the girl's older brother and her father are on the
Не,
front
Газа
line.
это все то же самое, все в одной
For
куче.
freedom. They're fighting for peace. They're fighting for democracy against dictatorship. There is very simple equation. If
Нас не
Ukraine
испугаешь, кидай донат.
democracy loses. If Russia gets what they want, it will open
Нам на
a
печеньке.
whole window for opportunity for anyone
тут, блин.
who is stronger
Привет.
to do whatever they want, and we will have more geopolitical mess. Sweden
Когда донатить
and
начнете,
Finland
тогда
join
будут
NATO
пирожки.
because they can't be so close to Russia, and they can't afford just assuming that they will not attack again.
Да,
Because
кратко
in
мы делим
1939
Россию на
they took part of
25
Finland
республик.
just before the World War II kicked on,
Алишер,
and they
Лондон
took
Сити.
half of Poland. Whatever you get Russia to take and get away with, they will take even more. This is why we gather here. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And before we have our national anthem, we will have few announcements this Sunday. There won't be any more rally because of Easter Sunday.
А мне
There will be
нет
bombing
зачем
in
прятаться.
Ukraine.
Вот ты непонятно кто, no name. Сегодня есть, завтра тебя нет.
To defend us ourselves, but there will be no rally because we honor the Easter, we honor the Remembrance Sunday, we honor even the war rally, the flags that we do not recognize passing us by, and if they have a minute of silence, we stop our war rally.
Мы все вернемся в свою родину, когда вы успокоитесь и вас вообще не будет. Это самый лучший вариант. Я вернусь себе на Донбасс, человек из Москвы вернется в Москву. Мы все вернемся, так что хорош ты звездеть. Стоишь в Лондоне? Да, стою в Лондоне. Где мне еще стоять? У тебя дома, что ли? В своем свинарнике? Ну все, значит, этого не будет. Будем здесь, вас с нашими митингами показывать информацию всему миру. Людмила, у тебя толчок дома или на улице? Это первый вопрос.
Англичане хотя бы два слова связать могут.
We are in Parliament Square. If we are not in Parliament Square, it will be announced on social media. We will be by Saint Volodymyr statue.
Малолюдно. 6 утра в Лондоне.
More than 523 war rallies and more than 400 rallies just in last 36 months. I will speak to support Ukraine. I really want to add guns war rally is around 90 to hour because he is part of our rally.
На Биг Бене живешь? Биг Бен нельзя там жить, там
In St.
закрыто.
Albans every Wednesday at 1 p.m.
Толчок есть.
Welcome to. St. Albans, he's been doing that for
Тут
years
в квартирах по 2
now. And this is
толчка,
why
на всякий
if we
случай.
add it, it will be more than 600 war rallies altogether. Ще скажу українською мовою, дякую всім, хто приходить, але, будь ласка, коли іноземці приходять на ці мітинги більше, ніж нас, це дуже
Да-да,
соромно
Людмила.
для нас.
Знаем, знаем.
Значит, Людмила может позволить себе донат с двумя-то джакузи.
Наш прапор 2 години раз в місяць.
Мечти збиваються.
А ми не можемо прийти раз в місяць. Я порахував, наші волонтери, які організовують цю мітинги, сюди приїжджають.
То есть ты диван на патріоті ж збантало.
На транспорт більше, ніж 4 тисячі фунтів кожен.
Зешечки кидаєш.
Приїхати.
Хорошо устроился тоже, заебись, молодец.
Це дуже важлива справа збиратися тут. Це дуже важлива справа, тому що підходить, як Денис до мене підійшов і сказав, я хочу допомагати. Денис, ти допомагаєш?
Саша Васаби.
Денис допомагає.
Васаби это тебе кураторы так написали? Или ты сам выбрал?
Люблять Україну, і вони допомагають
О, видиш?
Україні, тому що разом
У тебе 3
ми можемо
толчка.
щось зробити велике. І коли
У другого
Денис
человека
хоче, ми
4.
збираємо. Що ми можемо робити? Толока. Тому що ми разом.
Красота русской
Коли
жизни
ми
измеряется в
ховаємося
количестве
десь, коли
туалетов
ми
дома.
приходимо, чи коли в наше місце прилетить ракета, то ми приходимо
Я
і нас дуже багато.
Ты русский,
Тобто
но
не
в
треба
каком
цього
Патауре
чекати.
живешь,
Мітинги це
а
дуже
в Тольятти не
важлива справа.
живешь. Как так получилось?
Багато енергії уходить у організаторів, щоб це організувати. І в п'ятницю більше мітинга немає. Тому треба приходити.
Ты как русский должен жить у себя на родине,
Слава Україні!
в Тольятти.
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим захисникам притч.
Слава! 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 Ще не вмерла України, ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you. Дякую.
Наши свиноматочки такие. И теперь все эти...
Стараются.
Да, блядь, вы только один скам и получите. Вы давно заскамились, вас давно нет, вас не существует. Как говорил мой дед, вы хер на блюде.
Дед хуйни не скажет. Флаги на тряпке. Тряпки это ваш аквафреш, который вы украли у Нидерландов.
И ваши тряпки обоссаны навечно. Кому Святая Русь, а кому занозонька в жопу.
Так,
Вы как были никем, так и остались никем. Включайте Распутина, пейте водку, танцуйте с медведями. И трахайтесь.
лаптиногие, да?
Лаптиногие, да. Это точно.
Все, будем заканчивать это. У нас флаги, в отличие от вас, не обоссаны.
Это у вас флаг грязный.
Там про флаги начались дискуссии быть, что российский флаг не обоссанный.
Да ладно.
Это я сказал, что их флаги обоссаны.
Вот. Это такое уважение, флаг, тряпку на спину. Вот.
Ты смотри, как оскорбились, да?
Да.
Что, из Банк Таура за российский флаг хорошо сражаться, да?
Да, наверное, на стеночке висит. Сражаться. Надо, пришли. Все, выключаем. Будьте на следующем стриме. Подпишитесь. И, может быть, буду в воскресенье. Всем пока.